This will be a lightning introduction. David, you've been in my life for too long as well, so we're even. So I wanted to put a little broader perspective on the topic. People here are involved in basic research and public health, but it goes beyond the health and science dimensions, at least science as we tend to think of it. Don't forget about social science. So the first thing to point out is, this is a graph of average temperature compared to the 1850, 1900 pre-industrial average temperature. And what Al Gore called an inconvenient truth in 2006 has become an undeniable truth. And amazingly, last year, 2023, the hottest year on record, was virtually at the tipping point of 1.5 Celsius above pre-industrial. So this is really scary stuff. Stepping back from that as, as a background, most of us, myself included, when confronted with the thought of what's the relationship between climate change and infectious disease, will immediately hone in on insect vectors, looking at how climate and warming is going to extend the range. And because the range of the vectors increases, we will see the disease follow. A good example, somewhat different in context, is Lyme disease. As the tick spread across the United States, so came the organism, and so came Lyme disease as a national threat to health and to our ability to enjoy the outside, the outdoors, even walking through the grass. So these are consequential. And this slide, which I thank David for, highlights insect-borne viruses. There are many other infectious diseases that are also vector-borne like these. Climate change has a broad impact on human health. Temperature, we know, wildfires we've become aware of, changes in rainfall, droughts, heavy rains, sea level rise, which we're just beginning to experience, the melting of the ice caps, flooding. And it goes across a whole range of consequences, from crop failures and food insecurity, which leads to malnutrition, mass migration, people carrying whatever organisms they have in their flora, whether they're clinically symptomatic or asymptomatic, but it also leads to immune dysfunction. And a weakened immune system favors infectious disease. Extreme weather effects will also move populations, change relationships with the environment, and increase infectious disease exposure. And there are economic consequences to this in addition to long-lasting environmental damage. Thermal extremes on individuals, excess heat, excess cold, not only has a direct effect on survival and increases in mortality, but also alters immune function at the extremes of hot and cold. And of course, this is going to play into susceptibility to infectious disease. And then there's air pollution that follows on all of this, with its impact on chronic respiratory diseases like asthma and acute infectious respiratory diseases, and represents a risk factor for respiratory viruses and severe outcomes. And we know this was the case just recently with COVID. And then, of course, there's the increase in the vectors and the pathogens. I made mention of the permafrost. Recall that the thawing permafrost is postulated, not yet proven, but I think kind of likely, will free up novel and known bacterial, viral, parasitic, and fungal pathogens, as well as new antimicrobial resistance genes. So wherever we look, and if you want a nice recent reference, that's the PubMed reference for it. So what's the alternative, and what's the underlying message, and what do I want you to take away and think about? And that is what is called a One Health paradigm, which says that human health is intimately entwined with animal health and with the environment. And at the intersect of these three approaches is One Health. We have to think about it as the interactions. And just take note that most of the emerging infectious diseases that we know are zoonotic. They originate in animals. Majority of them are RNA viruses, which mutate rather rapidly because their system of integrity and translation is crappy. And we have to worry about bats and rodents, bats the most, rodents the next, and occasionally a few other odd animals like camels, which is indeed a very odd animal. So thinking about the presentations that you're going to hear today, do try to put it into the broader context. Do seek out your colleagues in other disciplines. They're all across the university. And Seed and Heed's leadership is going to ensure that all of these factors are kept in mind, because it will help you direct your specific research as well. Now I am going to sit back and enjoy listening and learning like you do. Thanks.